You're staring at a number on a screen. Maybe it's inside your brokerage app or scribbled on a napkin at 2 a.m. It's a big, round, intimidating number like $2 million. You look at it and your stomach drops because you're not there yet. You're not even close. You do the math in your head. If you save every penny for the next 10 years, you might hit it. Maybe. But the panic sets in. You feel behind. You feel like you've failed before you've even started. You think that number is the finish line, and right now, it looks like it's miles away. Here's the thing nobody tells you about that number. It's completely made up. It's a vanity metric. People obsess over the size of the pile, the net worth, when they should be obsessed with the flow. Focusing on hitting 2 million or 5 million is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom without checking how fast the water is draining out. You don't need a specific pile of cash to retire. You need a specific amount of cash flow to cover the gap between what you have coming in and what goes out. In a minute, you're going to realize you might be $500,000 richer than you think you are, just by changing one variable in the equation. The real number you need to know isn't your net worth, it's your freedom multiple. And the math is actually painfully simple. Take your annual spending, everything from the mortgage to the Netflix subscription, and subtract your guaranteed income, like Social Security or a pension. That remaining number, that's the gap. That is the only beast you have to feed. If you spend $60,000 a year and Social Security covers $30,000, your gap is $30,000. You don't need to fund the whole $60,000. You only need to build a machine that prints $30,000 a year. That cuts your target retirement number in half instantly. If you want simple money math that turns panic into a plan, subscribe. I'm Mint. Let's define the game properly because most people are playing with the wrong rulebook. The financial industry loves the big number because it scares you into handing them your money to manage. They want you aiming for 5 million so they can take their 1% fee on it. But retirement isn't a purchase you make at the store. It's a cash flow problem. The game is simply expenses minus guaranteed income equals the gap. Your investments only exist to fill the gap. That's it. If your gap is zero, you can retire with $0 in the bank. I know that sounds crazy, but it's mathematically true. If your pension covers your bills, your portfolio is just for luxury. Now, before you run off to calculate this, there's a nuance here that most people miss. The gap isn't static. It breathes. It changes based on the lifestyle you accept. And this is where the math gets fun and a little dangerous. Let's run the numbers on two different people. We'll call them Mark and Sarah. They're the same age, 62. They both want to quit the rat race. Mark has been grinding in a corporate job for 40 years. He's used to a certain lifestyle. He leases a nice SUV every 3 years, eats out 4 times a week, and has a big house with high property taxes. His burn rate, the amount of money he sets on fire every month just to exist, is $8,000. That's $96,000 a year. Mark checks his Social Security statement, and it looks decent. He'll get $30,000 a year. So Mark's gap is $96,000 minus $30,000. He needs to cover a $66,000 shortfall every single year. Using the standard baseline rule, multiplying that gap by 25 to ensure he doesn't run out of money, Mark needs a portfolio of roughly $1.65 million. He looks at his 401k. He has $900,000. He feels like a failure. He's nearly a millionaire, but in his specific math equation, he's broke. He has to keep working for another 5 or 6 years just to hit his number. Now look at Sarah. Sarah made less money than Mark her whole career. But Sarah drives a paid-off Honda. She cooks at home. Her house is smaller, taxes are lower. Her burn rate is $4,000 a month or $48,000 a year. Her Social Security is also a bit lower, say $24,000 a year. Here is the magic. Sarah's gap is $48,000 minus $24,000. She only needs to cover $24,000 a year from her portfolio. Multiply that by 25 and her freedom number is $600,000. If Sarah has that same $900,000 in her 401k that Mark has, she isn't just okay. She is wealthy. She is overfunded. She could have retired 3 years ago. Mark is stressed and working late. Sarah is gardening. They have the exact same bank balance. The only difference is the gap. This proves that your spending habits are twice as powerful as your investment returns. Every dollar you cut from your monthly spend reduces your retirement target by $300. Think about that. Cut a $100 subscription? You just lowered the amount you need to save by $30,000. But hold on, because there is a trap here. It's the inflation phantom. You calculate your gap today, right now, sitting at your kitchen table. But in 10 years, that milk and gas won't cost the same. If you lock in a number based on today's prices without building a buffer, you're going to run out of runway when you're 75. We'll fix that in a second. But first, you need to understand the levers. You have 3 levers to pull. Most people only pull one, make more money. They try to out-earn a bad spending habit. That's playing the game on hard mode. Lever 1 is portfolio growth. You try to get better returns. This is mostly out of your control. The market gives what the market gives. You can't force the S&P 500 to return 12% just because you didn't save enough. Relying on this is gambling, not planning. Lever 2 is income floor. This is increasing that guaranteed income. Delaying Social Security from 62 to 70 increases your monthly check by nearly 80%. That's massive. That directly eats away at the gap. If Mark, from our example, waited until 70, his check might cover almost half his burn rate, drastically lowering the pile of cash he needs. Lever 3 is the burn rate. This is the nuclear option. This is the one you control 100%. If you can sell the big house and move to a lower tax state, or pay off the mortgage so your housing cost drops to just taxes and insurance, you aren't just saving a monthly payment. You are collapsing the size of the mountain you have to climb. Let me show you a scenario that breaks people's brains. I call it the bridge year. Imagine you are 55. You hate your job. You have $500,000 saved. You think, I can't retire. I need $2 million. But what if you stopped thinking about retirement as a permanent vacation and thought of it as buying time? If you spend $50,000 a year, that $500,000 buys you 10 years of freedom. Straight up cash burn, that gets you to 65. At 65, Social Security kicks in and covers, say, $30,000 of your spending. Now your gap is only $20,000. Your portfolio is gone, sure, which is scary. I wouldn't recommend draining it to zero. But the point is, the math changes as you age. The gap shrinks when the government checks start arriving. You don't need the full $2 million sitting there on day 1 if you have reinforcements arriving on day 10. Here's where people mess up. They treat their retirement savings like a checking account. They see a big balance and think, I'm rich. Then they buy a boat or help their adult kid with a down payment. They forget that every dollar in that account has a job. It's an employee. It has to work for you for 30 years. When you take $10,000 out for a renovation, you didn't just spend $10,000. You fired an employee that was supposed to pay you $400 a year forever. The mistake is lifestyle creep in the early years of retirement. You finally have free time, so you travel, you eat out, you pick up expensive hobbies. Your spending goes up just as your paycheck goes to zero. This is called the go-go years trap. It burns down your compounding machine right when it needs to be strongest. So, how do we fix this? How do we find your real number, not the one the internet tells you? We're going to use a mint move. This is your specific action plan for this week. It's a 3-step sequence to crush the anxiety.
Step 1 is the naked audit. Print out your last 3 bank statements and credit card bills. Highlight the recurring fixed costs in yellow and the variable fun stuff in green. Be brutal. Add up the yellow. This is your survival number. If the world ends, this is what you need to keep the lights on. Step 2 is the gap calculation. Go to the Social Security website, saa.gov, and pull your estimated benefit at age 67. Subtract that number from your survival number. That result is your true gap. If your Social Security covers your survival number, congratulations, you are safer than 90% of the population. Everything in your 401k is just for the green highlighted stuff, the fun. Step 3 is the rule of 300. Take your annual gap number, the shortfall, and multiply it by 300. Why 300? That's 25 times 12. That gives you the lump sum you need to generate that monthly income safely. Write that number down on a sticky note. Stick it to your computer monitor. That is your target. Not 2 million, not 5 million. That specific number. For many of you, that number is going to be a lot smaller than you feared. For some, it might be bigger, but at least it's real. It's not a ghost story. Once you know the gap, you realize you don't have to win the lottery. You just have to manage the spread. You can attack it from both sides, save a bit more, spend a bit less. Now, there is one massive variable we glossed over: healthcare. If you retire before 65, you don't have Medicare. That gap we talked about, it gets wider. You need a bridge for insurance. But that's a whole different beast with its own set of loopholes. In the next video, I'm going to break down exactly how to bridge that health insurance gap without going broke, so you can actually pull the trigger on retirement before you're too old to enjoy it. Don't let the big number scare you. Calculate the gap. Feed the machine. I'll see you in the next one.